can't always communicate when things happen. And that is what exactly has happened. I, on Thursday morning, had a mild heart attack and spent the next 4 days in the hospital. And so I missed that one, and then the next one, still trying to recover. And so the recovery's been a little slower than I would like for it to be, but it's okay. Yeah, I think people just thought that I just skipped out. It was a little bit different than that. All right, let's get started this morning. Let's go over a little bit about the webinar. The webinar is an interactive learning experience. I started using that phrase about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago, and that's the way it is. This is not intended to be a training platform. This is intended to be an interactive learning experience where your questions are important and they apply to everything that we do. So we consider them to be an important part of the overall training process. We want to strive for mastery, and I'm going to talk about that at length today. I will. I'm going to talk about that at length today, that striving for mastery, and some tools that we're going to put in place that are going to help you to accomplish that. I believe that the why is as important as the how. We're going to talk about why a lot today. So just keep that in mind as we go. Want you to support and encourage each other and have fun. Those are the basic rules for the webinar. Pretty simple, pretty easy to follow. It's an opportunity for everybody to have a really good time and for this to be a really good learning experience. So, and thank you all who are talking about my health. I'll mention that one more time before we get finished this morning. We're going to use kind of what I call an open Zoom room concept. I can't open up the mics and have everybody talk, but you do have permission to be able to ask questions as long as the questions relate to the day's topic and as long as the questions are not questions that need to go to support. And we'll do our best to try to address those questions. Now, I may not do that this morning. I might very well run out of energy before this webinar gets finished. I have been taking a really heavy-duty medication that I have to take at early in the morning, and it kicks in about this time of the day, and so it starts to drain me pretty bad, and then I recover from that, and I'm fine for the rest of the day. But there's a couple of hours there that are just a little hard for me to do, and I pretty much need to be able to focus my attention during that period of time. So anyhow, that's feel free to ask your questions. It's kind of a modeled after an Ask Me Anything sort of a thing. And I prefer to do public problem solving rather than scripted webinars. I just think that I think you learn more from that, and everybody else's experience is better too. Yes, Jerry Lynn, if you wouldn't mind writing down the questions. We may not have as many today. I've got a little different kind of content to cover this morning. So, but yes, if you would do that, that would help. That would be very helpful to me. Okay. And I may not be able to answer them by the time we get to the end. All right, there's going to be kind of a slow return to normal here. After a few weeks off, we're going to go back to the full webinar schedule next week. Like I said, we're going to have a sort of a limited webinar today, in part because I'm not exactly sure how we're going to get through that. This will be the first time I've ever tried to do anything in that morning time period. And so the evenings are fine, but the mornings are a little bit shaky. And so this morning we're going to do the best that we can to make sure that that works out well. I'll be up to full duties next week, and then I'll be a little bit more active in the Facebook group, which I've been very, very, very quiet in for about the last month. This thing had been coming on for a little while, and it began to kind of slow me down, and so this is a little bit different approach this morning. Okay. All right. The next thing that I want to talk about is I want to talk about our journey. We've had a journey. This time period right about now marks just over 3 years of me doing this webinar. We started in 2016. This is 2019. Started in the spring, and so we're at just a little over 3 years on doing this webinar. We've been doing this webinar nearly every single week for 3 years. Went through a journey during that period of time. Did anybody else? Is everybody hearing me okay? Sam's asking if we've lost the signal. I want to make sure that we're still on and live. Okay, good. Sounds like everybody else. Sam, it may be you. Somebody indicate that to Sam if you would, please. Sam may just need to refresh. All right. Thank you all for that. All right, this is the journey. Over that 3-year period of time, there's been quite a journey that we've gone through. And we recognized very early on when I began the webinars that the tool by itself was not enough. Now, we made a lot of upgrades and a lot of updates and a lot of changes and a lot of cool features that were added to the tool. But we began to recognize that the tool was not enough. And because the tool was not enough, we had to move in a little bit different direction. That's when we offered the Magic Design webinar, and I did that. Bertrand did it. We did it several times. We made it available on the platform. It was out there. We talked about the 4 key elements of any effective design. Does anybody remember what those were? This is a really important. This is a review quiz. We're going to talk about reviews in just a little bit more. But does anybody remember what those 4 elements are of the Magic Design? And I've not forgotten that. I see it every time I look at a billboard, every time I open up an ad in a magazine, every time I look at Facebook. I recognize those 4 design elements. There's 4 key design elements that make a design magic. Does anybody remember what they were? Hey, Tyree, good to see you this morning. No response on the 4 elements. You're disappointing me. We talk about these a lot. 4 elements are background, logo, tagline, and the product. Those are the 4. Background, logo, tagline, and product. And yeah, early in the morning, yeah, I get it. But yes, so we moved to that piece of the puzzle, and we gave you background tools, and we talked about backgrounds. We talked about how important they were, and how that the backgrounds got to enhance and not take away from. And we talked about logos, and we talked about taglines, and we talked about colors, and we talked about fonts, and we went through that entire 4 elements of a Magic Design. Really, really important that we learned that. But then we realized that even the design was not enough. If we can give you a great tool, we can teach you how to use the tool in an effective and amazing way. We can give you the secret to making a design magical. Those 4 elements: background, logo, tagline, and product. Because if you don't have the product, you don't have a value exchange. There has to be a product that's communicated. And we talked about, things like Tony Robbins happens to be his product, so he doesn't need to have a product. It's just a picture of him as the product. But all of those things are key. Those 4 things to making a design work. But then we realized that the design wasn't enough. And about 2 years ago, started recognizing that the design by itself was not enough. And so we would show you how to enhance your designs, how to make them better, that kind of thing. Then I started saying, hey, we've got to give people opportunities. What kind of opportunities can we give people so that and we started to explore opportunities. And we got very involved in showing you how. And I went out and found as many different print-on-demand platforms as I could, and we talked about everything from T-shirts to Kiss stickers to phone covers and all of. And we started looking at the opportunities, and then even that by itself we recognized wasn't enough. And so in the very last webinar that I did, I made this comment that you see at the very end of this journey, and that is that people don't buy design, they buy results. And it's not enough to be able to offer a great design. What you have to offer is great results. And so that began a new quest in a new direction. People don't buy design, they buy results. Nobody cares how amazing the design looks if it doesn't get results. And we began to realize that something was missing. And so this has been a conversation at some level for about the last 3 years. I think people think you wake up one day and you have this amazing idea and it just happens. It's not the way it works. There is a journey that it takes, and that's the reason why I went through this journey. I wanted you to see what goes into this, and so some of you are on this webinar this morning because you're at one of those stages there. You've just gotten the tool and you're new, and you need to know where do I find the background erase tool? How do I make this a box, and all of those kinds of things. Okay, so you may be at the very early part of this journey, and that's okay. We're always going to address things having to do with the tool. So you may be at the early point of the journey. You may be trying to figure out, you're staring at a blank screen, where do I go next? And so the 4 design elements become really important: the background, the logo, the tagline, and the product. And we can talk about those things, and we talk about them a lot. We talk about them often, in spite of the fact that nobody could answer my question this morning. I said that tongue in cheek. And then you might be at the point where you're looking for, how do I take ViewZine and use it to generate income and revenue and things that might be helpful to me and help me to fulfill a business purpose that's here. And that brings us to the last stage, and that's that stage where people buy results. Okay. I'm just checking the questions here. So that brings us to this stage along the way here. And I had a long conversation with Bertrand about this, and I want to share with you where we're at next, okay? We felt like the missing element was that you needed to have those skills wrapped in a sound and solid customer-centric philosophy. What was missing was that people had the impression, people as in you as our UZiner world out there, had the impression that an image was going to do the job, and missed that what we're calling the sound customer-centric philosophy. This is a phrase I've been using for a while. You have to wrap your skills in a sound, solid, customer-centric philosophy, and have to be able to understand that this isn't about you, and it's not about how much will the customer pay me for a t-shirt design. It's instead, what is that t-shirt design going to do? And I've hinted at this a lot along the way, and as I hint at it along the way, realize that we need to be more obvious and blatant about it. And so rather than take up our time in this webinar to do that with, Bertrand has opened up what he's calling the Visual Story Marketing program. And I think this is brilliant. If you're brand new, this might not be for you, but what we're talking about here is definitely for you. Okay? It's definitely for you. It's for everybody on this journey, regardless of where you're at along the way. Whether you're just starting out with the tool, or if you're just starting to stare at that blank screen and going, where do I go next? Or if you're recognizing that it's not just enough to be able to give my client's design, I have to, that has to generate revenue for me, and then you get to the level where you realize that it's not enough. It's not enough to just give them design. You have to give them results. And the results are what matters, and the results come from understanding a solid, sound, customer-centric philosophy. And so I'm going to introduce you to that this morning, keeping in mind that you should have received, you may have received, I don't know, this has been offered to a limited number of people. You may have received an email about the Visual Story Marketing. The only other place that it will be offered is today. And I'm going to go fairly easy on this because I'm limited on how much time and energy I'm going to have. So this was very timely for me to be able to insert this here without me having to focus on creating today's webinar. But with it, there's a lot of things. We're pulling all of those pieces together. Okay. And this is it. All right. Here's what we see. Let me share with you the visual that 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 Bertrand shared with us, and this is what you see. Okay, this is what you see. What you see is this. You see the website and the social media graphics. That's what you see. That's what we see. When we take a look at people's work and we take a look at the things that they're doing, and a lot of you share a lot of stuff with us, and that's good, and we want you to do that. And so this is it. That's what we see. The problem is it's just the top of the iceberg, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's underneath that. And what we realize is that a lot of us do this naturally because it's part of our training, it's part of our background, it's part of the understanding that we have. But this is really important. It's really important for us to do this and for us to understand this. And I'll give you the information in just a little bit. So those of you who are asking for info, I'm going to share that with you in just a little bit. So hold the phone. We'll get to that. I'm actually going to go through this for you as well. Okay. So, but underlying all of those pieces, the website graphics, the social media graphics, any print graphics, and more of us are going back to using print more frequently than we have in the past. It's amazing to me how many things come full circle, but that's the visual marketing piece. We see those things, that's what stands above the water. But underneath that lies three really important things. And the first one is the storytelling. And we do this a lot. I try to do this a lot, even in the webinars, and I've done it subtly. Sometimes I just need to share it openly. The stories are the things that captivate people. The design is a way to enhance the story. And so you've got to be able to pull those pieces together. How does the story fit with what you're doing? Okay, how does the story fit with the visual marketing piece? What's the story behind that image on the website? They should not be haphazardly chosen. Okay. We have a platform we call beast mode marketing. Well, we can't use the word guerrilla because that guerrilla marketing was taken by the father of a friend of mine. So I got to be careful what I say about that. Okay. So we have we call it beast mode marketing. Well, guess what's in the images? Anybody want to guess what's in the images? Wow, you all are quiet today. The beast is a gorilla, exactly. That's exactly what it is, but we call it beast mode so that we recognize and we honor other people's stuff. But it's the same kind of strategies, same kind of stuff. So it's storytelling. How do I use the story and the visual to fit together? How do the story is the part that people want to know. It's not the visual. The visuals, I don't want to say it's not important because it's extremely important. I misunderstand what I'm saying. But if they don't fit together, then you're forever trying to pull the pieces together, and that doesn't work. And when your visual takes away from the story or requires an explanation in the story, then you're conflicting in your presentation. And it's very important that you not do that. That leads you to a brand strategy and identity. Now, most of you know that my identity, my tagline in my logo is simple makes awesome easy. Now, because that's my philosophy, it would make no sense to have a busy background, right? I mean, that's not my brand. My brand is simplicity. So my design has to be simple. I can't complicate it in that manner. Does that make sense to everybody? Tell me if that makes sense to you. I can't let my design distract from my tagline. That makes no sense whatsoever. And yet I see it happening all the time. You will never see me create a busy design. I can't, I won't do that because my goal, my purpose, my business, my tagline, my identity, my brand is about simplification. And if it's about simplification, I can't make it complicated. And y'all are saying that makes sense. So let's understand this is the track that we need to be running on. What helps us to have a customer focused, a customer-centric, a sound philosophy that accomplishes our goals and our purposes is that we need to take that same strategy and we need to apply it to the customer story, which is a little bit more complicated than just, hey, I can make a social media graphic for you. Because we want to make sure that the graphic itself enhances the customer story. If I were your customer and my business philosophy is simple makes awesome easy, that's my philosophy, and you give me a design that's busy, it's not going to accomplish its purpose. It's not. And I need to make sure that those things work together. And that requires an understanding of the customer, correct? I need to know where they're coming from. I have a whole list of places where you need to understand. Marshall just said you're not the hero, the story your customer is. In fact, in the program that we have here, is in fact in the program that I'm going to share with you in just a second, the visual story program I want to share with you is we talk about the hero of the story, and it's the customer. It's always the customer. Melody, I can't do that today. It's a great question, but I can't do it today. Please understand that. Okay. So how to unleash the power of storytelling, branding, and visual marketing in your business. This is what this is the magic behind this whole thing. Okay. Here's what you will discover inside this masterclass, and this is a masterclass. Okay, go back to that term mastery. This is a masterclass. I'm going to give you the details of the masterclass here. High level overview of the details. The first week is the hero that you serve. See, there's that phrase that we talked about before. And week 2, it's becoming the helper. You want to help enhance that hero. You want to work to make that person better. And so you're there to lift up the hero. And so in the process of that, the colors that you choose and the typeface that you have and what that logo conveys, all of that's extremely important. Exactly, Sharon, how they started their business, what the challenges they went through, because the story didn't begin the day you opened the doors. I was actually in a seminar one day on a panel, and on this panel was me from a marketing background. And there were 2 attorneys. There was somebody on how to get government contracts. There was an IP attorney, and there was an accountant. So that was those of us who were on this board. And somebody said, "So when do you start focusing on branding?" And I said, "Well, what is your brand?" And that's a great question. How would you all answer that question? What is your brand? Donald's saying that the screen did not advance. I'm parked on week 2. That's what you should be seeing. Does everybody see week 2? Okay. So what is your brand? Greg hit it. It's shorthand for who you are. It's just a way of describing who I am. And so I said, "So what's your brand?" And she said, it's who I am. I said, "So when did you start becoming you?" That's when you start focusing on your brand. When did you start becoming you? Now, I call my business, Eric said, and I do it for this reason. There's a very simple reason behind it. I was a national sales trainer, and as I traveled the country, people could not remember how to pronounce Mulford. For some reason, that last name is complicated. And they would say there was this guy, Eric, and he said, or Eric said, or Eric, when Eric was here, Eric said, and I was just Eric. I wasn't anything else. I was just Eric. They never called me by my last name because it was too complicated for them to remember. So it was Eric said. So what did I end up calling my business? Eric said. Made sense to everybody, right? Very simple stuff. It's not complicated. You build your brand. You build your brand by who you are, and you do exactly the same thing for your customer. Sometimes customers want to do what's called a rebranding. Well, rebranding is simply changing some of those things that are a reflection of who you are. And you want to make sure that the logo and the colors and the typefaces, those things, and see, for me, those things all have to be very, very simple, because my tagline is simple makes awesome easy. It's been that way for 20 years. And it started when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, and people in the class would go, "What did the teacher just say?" And they would ask me. And I would say, "Well, what they said was this." And so I would take the complicated concept that they just heard and I would try to make it simple. I've been doing that forever. So that's what it is. All right. So you become the helper, and you help the customer to tell their story. All right. Is everybody following along here with what we're doing? This is important regardless of whether you take this course or not. That's the thing I want you to get. Week 3, preparing for the arrival, the hero's arrival. And we go through the 3 touch points and the 5 elements that you need to have on your website, how to write the right copy and that kind of a thing. So these are really, really important. All right. Guess Nancy must have missed my point earlier. Week 4, visual story marketing. All right. This is the visual story marketing. This is where that magic design formula that we talked about before eliminates the need for inspiration. You're not staring at a blank screen. It's not what you do. All right. And so we go through week 4 is the visual storytelling. Week 5 is the brand stories. And then we wrap it up week 6 on using visual storytelling to market as a service. We show you how to do that, because again, we go back to what's the purpose. What do we try? What do customers buy? They don't buy design. What do businesses buy? They don't buy design. What is it that they buy? They buy results. They buy results. And how do you get to the results? That's the goal. How do you get to the results? From where we are right here to I just got the tool, but I'm going to have to take that tool, and I need to take that tool and I need to turn it into a way to generate revenue for me. How do I do that? And I have to be able to give people results. It's results that they're looking for. Results are what they buy. And the purpose of the visual story marketing service is to help you understand how you get results for your customer. And then the tools do make it easier. The tools make it really easy. Our tools are built around the philosophy of how do we get results? How do we easily and quickly create a background, a logo, a tagline? How do we quickly and easily properly position the product so that it does what will get results for the customer? And we made those really easy. The product is simple because it's the quickest, easiest background removal tool for the product I've ever seen. And we can lay that on a very simple background. And we've given you all kinds of background designs to make it really easy to do that. And then a logo and tagline, those pieces of the puzzle are fit in there. Okay. All right. Any questions so far about what I've talked about? I'm going to show you where you find this at next. But before we leave this screen, I wanted to know, are there any questions before we go away from this 6-week training course? Yeah, I'm going to do that right now, Dave. I'm going to take you there in just a moment. In just a moment. All right, I showed you all a while ago when we opened up. When I opened this up this morning, I showed you where I was at. This is where I'm going to check on this guy. So I will be right back. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and I'm gonna be back in just a second. Okay, so hang with me while I switch my screen here. All right, you should see my screen that says the Lost Art of Visual Story Marketing. Y'all seeing that now? All right, that is that screen that you're looking at right here. This is the program itself. Now realize this is a limited edition, only 100 spots available. We opened it up yesterday. 30 people took advantage of it immediately, and so there are 70 spots left. We only sent that email to about 250 people. So this has some limited spots available in it, and they filled up rather quickly. I'm going to grab this link, and I'll paste it in here for you. All right, but let's take a look at this, and you can see what's involved here. All right, there's a simple process. You sign up for the class, you take the class, and you become a master visual marketer. Okay, very easily get started today. This will take you to the checkout page. It is $97. Oh, sorry, I forgot to do that. There you go. That's the link right there. I pasted it and hadn't hit enter. But this is the process. This is the course itself. This goes back to, remember that journey that we talked about. All right, the journey. I think about this often. If I were starting my career at the very beginning, what would I want? I want, and we've already had somebody say all they wanted was they want to know how the tool works. Listen, you can figure the tool out pretty quickly, but there's more to it than that. If I were starting today, and I just bought Uzine, I would want this. I'm not saying that to sell it. It's not a hard sell. Matter of fact, you may not qualify for this. You might not want it at all. But I'm going to want to know how do I do more? How do I do more than just make the tool work? That's important. All right. And so this goes through a very careful explanation right here. This tells you who this is for. I want to make sure that I'm the right kind of person for this. Sometimes I see these offers made and I don't fit that profile at all. I'm really glad that they had the profile, okay? Because it makes my life really easy when I understand exactly what they're trying to do, okay? And then here's again, kind of an overview of the things that we talked about. But I have one more thing for you this morning, and I think you'll like this, okay? This gives you some more detail about what we just talked about. You know, the merch, which we've talked about quite a bit. We've talked about stationery quite a bit. We've done those things. But I got one more thing for you here. And again, this is not, I'm not trying to sell you anything here. But what we've done is we've taken this page right here. All right. And that'll allow you to sample one of the lessons. And you'll get a chance to see, what is this lesson like? Because I always like to know what's there. And this is a great way for you to be able to find out what's there. But these are things that I wish I had known when I started. Honestly, these are things I wish I had known. And because I didn't know them, I had to discover them. Now, because of my background, I knew them. I just didn't know how to apply them. Yes, you should be able to get that free lesson with the link that I posted. That should open right up for you. It opened right up for me, so it should work out just fine. But I thought this course, first of all, fit perfectly with what I needed to do. I needed to be kind of careful into this morning. I couldn't I couldn't hit this as hard as I would normally do. Had to take a little bit of time. It's going to take me a little while to recover from this, okay? Mike, that's a really, really good question. Let me ask you this. Let's turn Mike's question. Mike's question says, is this also for growing my company's online business rather than building a graphical marketing business? That's a great question. Let me take that question and ask a question. Okay, let's go back up here and we'll just take a look at this. Are those things going to be helpful to your company's online business? That's my first question. Is there anything in this first week that would be beneficial to your company's online business? And I think that's a key question. You know, killing your ego, the old way versus the new way. I call that the difference between command and control and connect and collaborate. Yes, I think there's advantage in that. The customer hero, is it going to help your business? Is it going to help your business to have a customer centric focus rather than a how do I make money centric focus? And so yes, that would be that, in my opinion, that would be beneficial. My brand strategy. Yeah, you know, I just gave you some detail about my own brand strategy. I think that's beneficial. Okay. And now keep in mind, Mike, you may think that, hey, I've already pretty much nailed this, and that's okay. If you have, that's great. But this is a good way to kind of get a review and find out. These things right here focus more on on the graphic design. But down here, where am I going to? How am I going to touch people? And how's that going to come across? I mean, we've gone into great detail in various webinars about what works in a Facebook ad and what doesn't work, and what works in a Twitter ad and what doesn't work. And one of the things that you want to make sure that you don't do is you don't have it blend into your newsfeed. Okay, and those are things that are just that I think would be beneficial. You know, this one right here. I mean, Tyree's on right now, and I use Tyree as an example. Tyree is an example of, and Tyree's in a completely different industry, does completely different thing. But I asked him this question. I said, Tyree, would it be cool if you go to a seminar and every member of your team has a matching phone case? Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Would that speak more than? And I've talked about using the KISS sticker and how that using the KISS sticker has gotten me business just because I have a KISS sticker stuck on the top of my on the top of my laptop and I walk into the coffee shop, right? So would that be helpful to an offline business? And that's my offline business that I get the business from because of the KISS sticker. So yes, all those things are beneficial. So kind of took Mike's question and took it in an interesting direction. I'm really glad he asked the question because it allowed us to be able to do this. To week 5 about brand stories. This is really good because like Gene said earlier, if all it is a diary and you're not providing value, then it's worth skipping over. But if you're marking a journey, then that's a big difference. Dorn, I'm going to ignore that one today, although I could have a lot of fun with it. But I would have a lot of fun with it under other circumstances. Any other questions that I can help you with this morning? Because this old guy's starting to wear out. And y'all got both of the links, right? I didn't miss a link. You got the link to the sales page, and you also got the link to the first. You got the link to the first lesson. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. Okay, that link for the first lesson is right here. I may not have, I may have missed that. I'm sorry. Well, for some reason, I can't paste it in there today. Try that again. Nah, I can't paste it for some reason. Okay, Geraldine just posted it. Thank you. I was really excited about today for this reason. I ended the last webinar and then that health hiatus. I ended that last webinar by saying that people buy results, not design. And I wasn't sure when this was going to come out, but my whole purpose for setting that up was so that you would understand. I have no idea, Jennifer. So that you would understand that there is a journey that people have to go through, and it's more than the tool. It's more than the design techniques. It's really about results. And I want you to be able to have the tools that you need so you can get the results that people are looking for. Okay? All right. If there is nothing else, I'm going to be in a hurry to sign off. Okay? Yes, the first week, Ray's asking a good question here. Is this take at your own speed? Yes. There's a couple of things, and I didn't go into the details on the sales page. You'll see them there. There's a Facebook group. It's a very private, exclusive Facebook group there. And then there's also the course. And the course, the first lesson is all available at one time. And then the rest of that's drip fed. So that, because what happens in courses, and I've written 100 of them or more, what happens in courses is that people look at a 6-week course and they look at all the content, they feel overwhelmed, they skip around, and they don't do a good job of it. So this is pieced out in drip fed that way. Okay. All right, I think that's all of the questions. Thank you all so much, and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend if you're in the States where we celebrate that. Thank you again for your time and your attention. I'll be back here next week, a little stronger and a little better, a little more excited about doing this, I promise. Making sure I haven't missed a single question here. Thank you all so much for everything that you're saying. I appreciate it. All right. With that, I'm going to sign out. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.